Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a fascinating and honestly deeply hidden layer of modern technology. I am so excited to guide you through this. And while you might notice our slightly kawaii-inspired visual style today, just to keep things fun, we are diving straight into a very serious central mystery. Basically, how is artificial intelligence actually built? We're going to pull back the curtain on the massive hidden human workforce that secretly powers the AI tools we use every single day. So let's jump right in. So tech CEOs love pushing this very specific, almost utopian illusion, right? The mainstream narrative right now is that we're zooming toward a future where AI systems are going to be fully autonomous. They're going to totally do away with the need for most human labor. In fact, some executives have been warning that AI could spike unemployment to anywhere from 10 to 20% in just the next few years. They're really painting this picture of machines simply taking over the heavy lifting of human thought, turning intelligence into a completely automated utility, like electricity. But as you might guess, there is a massive disconnect between that slick marketing myth and the reality. The myth is that autonomous, quote-unquote, PhD-level AI is arriving right now to replace us. The reality, though? Well, according to recent labor investigations, it's pretty much the exact opposite. These billion-dollar AI systems are not autonomous at all. They actually rely entirely on a frantic, often low-wage human workforce to train them, correct them, and feed them data constantly. So building AI is actually driving the rapid growth of a totally new kind of precarious gig worker.
Which brings us to the next section, meet the anxious rabbits. Who exactly is training this AI? Initially, tech companies were sourcing cheap data labor from low-wage countries like Kenya, or economies facing major crises like Venezuela. But as these companies push to build more and more advanced models, they are increasingly targeting college-educated Americans to train what they like to call their PhD-level AI.
To really understand how this works, let's look at a real person. We'll call her Jen. That's a pseudonym from the source reporting. So Jen is an Ivy League PhD graduate, but facing a terrible job market, she applied to over 200 roles and literally only got 3 callbacks. Struggling to survive, she resorted to food stamps and working $15 an hour gig jobs. Eventually, she gets recruited for a, quote, philosophy intelligence analyst role by an AI contractor called Mercor. And get this, her interview for this highly specialized role wasn't even conducted by a human. It was entirely automated.
Just imagine how demoralizing this trajectory is. Jen gets an initial offer of $55 an hour. Great, right? But just 2 weeks in, her contract is abruptly ended. The next offer she gets drops to $45 an hour. By the third project, it's down to $35. And when workers try to push back against these sudden pay cuts, they're usually just ghosted. Every now and then, a high-paying sprint pops up, like her final offer of $101 an hour. But that turns the worker into an anxious rabbit. They're racing in the middle of the night to max out their hours before the task pool abruptly dries up. It's an incredibly unstable way to earn a living. And Jen is absolutely not an anomaly here. Data from labor researcher Tim Newman reveals a really stark reality. A staggering 86% of this specific workforce struggles to meet their basic financial responsibilities. Only 14% actually consider themselves financially stable. This is clear proof that the hidden human backbone powering our latest AI advancements is facing profound, everyday economic precarity. And the systemic hardships go way deeper than just trying to make rent. 1 in 4 of these workers relies on public assistance like Medicaid and food stamps. More than 1 in 5 have experienced homelessness. Researchers even found workers rationing essential medications because they just don't have reliable healthcare. And crucially, we need to point out that this industry often actively recruits from highly vulnerable and disabled populations. These are folks who've been pushed out of the traditional workforce and honestly have no choice but to accept whatever terms these platforms throw at them.
So what does this all mean for their bottom line? According to Newman's research, the median annual earnings for these data workers is just $23,000. That is a shocking number, especially when you draw a contrast to the immense, world-shifting wealth that these AI models are currently generating for the tech industry overall.
And just to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this hidden workforce, consider this number, 700,000. That's the amount of specialized graduates that just one major contracting platform, Scale AI, claims to have at its disposal. We're talking about a massive distributed army of gig workers. And, just as an impartial point of fact regarding the economics here, back in 2021, the former CEO of Scale AI actually became the world's youngest self-made billionaire by leveraging this exact labor model.
Okay, next up, the arsenic project. We've talked about the financial instability, but what about the actual work? What kind of disturbing AI tasks are these people doing? Let's look at Ozzy. He's a philosophy graduate in Oregon working for a platform called Surge AI. Now, Ozzy initially enjoyed the sheer variety of questions he had to evaluate. That is, until he was assigned to a project codenamed Arsenic.
Workers like Ozzy are thrown into incredibly varied and sometimes deeply disturbing scenarios. Suddenly, he was forced to answer highly niche questions wildly outside his philosophy background, stuff like grading advanced calculus or even providing specialized psychological counseling for abuse. And, horrifyingly, the Arsenic project also required him to review violent AI-generated videos of extreme gore and murder. Ozzy reported that reviewing this synthetic violence literally gave him nightmares for weeks. Because of all this, labor researchers are raising a huge red flag. They warn that this system is dismantling full-time employment, ushering in what they call the Uber-ization of all knowledge work. The industry is treating specialized knowledge as a cheap, on-demand commodity. Workers like Crystal Kaufman, who is both a data worker and a researcher, describe frantically platform jumping. They're working 13-hour days across multiple sites just trying to piece together enough money to pay basic bills.
Which brings us to the ideology of automation. Why is the AI industry structured this way in the first place? For that, we turn to the analysis of economist Darren Acemoglu, who studies the effect of AI on the labor market. He argues that Silicon Valley is aggressively pursuing this specific model of precarious gig work not just for profit, but because of a deeply ingrained ideology.
Acemoglu points out that this creates a vicious cycle. Step 1, employers lay off traditional human workers, citing new AI capabilities as the reason. Step 2, those increasingly desperate workers are forced to take these precarious, cheap gig jobs. And finally, Step 3, in those gig jobs, they literally end up training the very AI models that are meant to replace human labor entirely. Acemoglu warns that the cycle could sideline a massive fraction of workers from meaningful employment, which would drive unprecedented inequality.
So we're at a critical crossroads here. Automation versus augmentation. Acemoglu argues that focusing entirely on automation, meaning eliminating human roles just to cut costs, is an elitist ideological choice made by tech CEOs. It is not some inherent inevitable requirement of AI technology itself. We could choose augmentation instead. We could build AI to give teachers better tools for individualized education or give nurses better tools to improve diagnosis and patient care. But right now, the industry is largely choosing the path of just replacing human labor.
Moving to our final section, setting a global standard. How are workers pushing back against this? Well, the ultimate irony here is that the AI giants are completely dependent on the very workers they exploit to make their models function. And that means these indispensable data workers actually hold a significant amount of leverage.
Real-world resistance is already underway. Organizer Crystal Kaufman helped lead Turk of Talkon, an effort that successfully built collective power on Amazon's Mechanical Turk platform. They actually pressured the massive corporation to change its unfair task rejection policies. Now labor advocates are working to organize a global coalition of these far-flung data workers. They're modeling this effort on the historical successes we've seen in the garment sector, hoping to collectively demand better conditions worldwide.
Beyond just worker organizing, powerful legislative solutions are also taking shape. Take Assembly Bill 2653, the California Sweatshop-Free AI Procurement Act, proposed by Assemblymember Alex Lee. This bill aims to leverage the massive purchasing power of the government. It ensures that California taxpayer dollars are only used to buy AI tools that were built in compliance with strict fair labor standards. It's a really strategic way to combat exploitation, both domestically and abroad, by basically setting a powerful new standard for procurement.
All of this leaves us with one final overarching question to think about. Will we choose to use AI to augment human workers, lifting up our collective capabilities? Or will we choose to replace them, shifting the burden of knowledge work onto a highly precarious, invisible gig underclass? The sources make one thing crystal clear. The future of this technology is not inevitable. It's a choice that we are currently making. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the hidden human engine behind AI. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.